Sandra Clements with Clements Family Ministries. And again, we're proceeding with our study on And He Gave Them. And in that study, up until now, we've looked at the Genesis story, looked at God created and formed, male and female. We've looked at the fact that God has given them a decree or a command. He's given them a warning as to what they can do and cannot do in the garden. He's placed them in a garden, and He's given them two primary commands to cultivate and to protect the garden. Now the question is, protected from what? And we know from Scripture that Jesus said that He saw Satan fall from heaven like lightning. So we would presume that they are to protect the garden from an enemy or an alien. And then we see this enemy or alien called the serpent having a conversation with the female part of the creation, and they're having a discourse as to what God said and didn't say. And then we find out that because of the persuasion of this enemy in the garden, the serpent, the woman decides she will partake of what God said she shouldn't partake of, which was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And when she said when she said it was beautiful and it would make one wise, she said she desired it, so she partook of it, and she gave some to her husband who was with her. And many people have said that the man wasn't there, but he was, and he disobeyed God as well in partaking of that forbidden fruit. Then God, they hide themselves from God, as we've seen before. And in hiding themselves from God, God comes on the scene and says, Adam, where are you? He's speaking to both of them, Adam the man and Adam the woman. Where are you? And Adam the man said, we realized we were naked, so we hid ourselves. And then God knows then that they disobeyed Him. And then He begins to say, give them the consequences of their disobedience. And the first consequence was given to the serpent, and that he would, crawl on his belly, that he was the lowest of all animals from that point on, and that he was cursed. And then God gives an edict to the woman. He says, snare has increased thy sorrow. You shall turn toward your husband, and he will rule over you. That was as a consequence of her actions. And then she's going to act again, which is going to verify what God has said to her. It's like a prophetic decree, actually. Then God says to the man, because you have obeyed your wife in disobeying me, He said, the ground is cursed for your sake. And He says, thorn and thistles you're going to have in terms of making a living, getting food, whereas before it is inferred, not stated, but they had absolute provision without hard work. They did have to work, but it wasn't by the sweat, because He said you will work now with sweat, which presumes there wasn't sweat before. Then God He tells the man to name the woman, and her name now becomes Eve, which means mother of all living. He's now Adam with the name Adam, meaning Adam, an individual. And he also represents the whole. They represent the whole of humanity, as I said before. Now He casts the man, Adam, out of the garden. And remember, He had said to the woman, you will turn toward your husband and he will rule over you. She turns toward the man, Adam, her husband. She leaves the garden when he does, instead of turning toward God. And you know from history that man has ruled over woman from that day until this one, basically. Now, that was not God's original intent for woman or man. He meant for them to be partners, co-laborers, all these words that were co-essential. Excuse me, they were co-essential. They were put here in the earth to take dominion over the earth and not to take dominion over one another. They were to function as one. Now, I'm going to skip over basically a lot of biblical history in Genesis, because I want to show you a patriarch and a matriarch in history that images more of what God was saying to the man and the woman in the beginning. And you know it as the Abraham story, because most people say Abraham is the father of faith. But we're going to see that Sarah is the mother of faith. See you next time. Remember, I'm Sandra Clements. This is Clements Family Ministries, and He Gave Them.